Almost 4 months ago, I was able to show you a little preview video of Europa Universalis 5 at that current stage of the game in May 2025. I played as the nation of Greenland, which is a playable nation in EU5, as you probably know by now. And the interesting thing is that at that point, the strategy of Paradox Tinto of releasing content from different content creators that early about the game was that they wanted to get the feedback from the community, from you guys, as early as possible to then work on the game and improve the things that you suggested that have to change before the release date is announced. And that happened just a week ago. And therefore, I'm here right now. I can say I have access to the game again after, as I said, about 4 months ago. So sadly, I cannot show you any new gameplay. We are not allowed to show any gameplay yet. But what I thought what I could do is we can talk freely about everything. So I replayed a game as Greenland in the version that I have now. That has, of course, 4 months of development and changes in it. And I would then do a video, which is this video you're seeing right now, to compare my current experiences with Greenland compared to the Greenland experience that I had 4 months ago. And yeah, I'm just going to use my video from May and show you a few things that happened there, and then I'm going to talk about the changes. And I can tell you already there are huge changes also to the nation of Greenland itself that affected my gameplay now that I played just a day ago. So yeah, I'm just going to show you the video from May and talk about the changes that have been implemented by now. If you now want to pre-order EU5 already right now after you saw my video or the other creators' videos about EU5 already, and you're really convinced that this is the game for you, you want to buy that already, then it would really help me out if you do that through the link in the first pinned comment that leads you towards the official Paradox website, where you can see you can pre-order EU5 on the regular price or on the premium edition. And if you do that and add that to the cart, you're going to notice that you can fill out a promo code, or rather a creator code for that matter, where you can add the code of your favorite creator. It doesn't have to be me, but don't waste it because it's completely for free. You could just type in the code of your favorite creator, add promo code, and that you can see has taken it, and then proceed to buy the game and pre-order it. You will get a Steam key. You don't pay anything extra. It just helps your favorite creator out to pre-order the game. But now let's continue with the video. The first thing that I want to talk about is the population. And for that I have 3 statistics of the start date and then of 1370 and then 1400, where I listed the population differences between the current version that I'm playing on and the May version from 4 months ago. And the biggest change is already in the start date, which is that Greenland only starts right now in the current version with 1065 population. Compared to that, the earlier version that I did the video on, in that version Greenland had 3.2 thousand population. So 3 times the population that it has right now. Now you might think this is a huge nerf to Greenland, but let me tell you, it's not that big of an impact as you might think it would be, because in the year 1370, so 30 years after the game, I was able to get it up to 6.5 thousand populations in the current version. So from 1,000 to 6.5 thousand in 30 years. Compared to the May version in 1370, I had 8.5 thousand population, so the difference is still the same as in the beginning of the game. So I have 2,000 less population in the current version at the same date as I had in the May version. But it shows that the population growth really didn't change that much, and I think this is actually a good thing. Now, obviously, I was using the inviting settlers mechanic in this game as well as I did in the May game, so the passive population growth didn't matter that much anyways, but it is very interesting to see what happened after 1370, because after 1370, I couldn't really use the invite settlers anymore on all the other Nordic countries, so I couldn't use it on Sweden, Denmark, and the Isles anymore, which I could before, because at some point you run out of favors. Okay, you can't curry favors infinitely, so at some point you run out of favors, and then you can't invite settlers from that country anymore until the rest of the game, basically, or until you get favors or give favors in return to those countries. But yeah, that basically means that after 1370, I could only ever invite about 10 settlers per month for 2 years or something, and that only every 10 years from Norway, because you can always curry more favors passively from your overlord, and therefore I could just invite settlers from them every now and then. But the population growth from inviting settlers really dropped dramatically after 1370. Now, the numbers really didn't go down that much, because in 1400, so another 30 years later, I had about 11,000 population in my country. That's almost double the population that I had 30 years before that. And that, as I said, without inviting settlers from several countries. And that is because by that point, I managed to get the passive population growth to such a high amount that I could actually concentrate a lot of people in my capital area, in my capital state, and in my capital location, so that I could actually double my population within 30 years again, even though I had no more outside settlers to help me out with that. And in my opinion, this is really, in terms of the feeling that I had about that, it really felt very immersive and very fun to play, simply because, yes, I had a harder time to increase my population after I couldn't invite that many settlers anymore, right? But I was still able to increase the population with the use of very specific actions that you use for population growth. You're going to notice that if I show that to you in another game. But talking about that is really difficult. But there are a few modifiers that you can use to play tall, basically, to increase your population, to centralize your population in one single location. And that was really fun to play that tall in Greenland and have that kind of reward in the end of increasing your population by a significant amount without foreign help, basically. The second thing that I want to talk about is the income. First of all, a lot of people commented it under the video that I did 4 months ago, that in that version you could ask other nations for money very easily for just a few favors, and that way I could get like 500 ducats from Castile after 5 years of sending a diplomat. Same for France, Hungary, Bohemia, all these rich countries. And that way I really had 90% of my entire gold that I had available in that earlier version were coming from this diplomatic interaction. And a lot of you commented under the video that this was totally broken, totally overpowered, and it had to be fixed. And Paradox listened to that, and they fixed it in a very balanced amount, in my opinion. Because what they did is they increased the trust that you needed from 10, that it was in the May version, to 25, which it is in the current version. That essentially means that it's impossible for smaller countries such as Greenland to ask for any kind of money anymore, because you cannot curry favors beyond a certain amount on larger countries. because at some point you owe them so many favors that the game just says, no, you cannot do that anymore. You just have to pay your debt to them before they can give you more of their stuff. So I think a really perfect way to balance that out, that it is still possible. If I would help them in wars or something, I could still use my favors for money from them, but I have to actually work for it now. And in my opinion, this feels really balanced, and I think this is already the final version that it should be working with, because I think it's literally, as I said, the perfect way to balance this out. Now, for me specifically, that of course meant that in my current run, 90% of the money that I had available in the run 4 months ago was simply gone. I couldn't get that money anymore, and therefore I had to really focus on my economy from the inside of my country. And that was also really fun, because in the earlier May version, what you could just do for money, if you don't do the exploit of asking other nations, what you would just do is make insane trade income, because you would just make a crazy trade income also from buying things that your population wants to buy from you then after that. Or of course selling your own goods to the markets of Europe, such as ivory. Now in my current version, I could still sell ivory to for a pretty large amount of money. So ivory production was still worth it, and I really liked the fact that they didn't make the trade goods less expensive. I think they made it even more expensive, to be honest, which in my opinion is a good thing, because ivory is like a really rare thing to have in the 14th century. I could make a lot of money with selling ivories, but the thing that balanced that out is the expenses. So if you made like 3 ducats of trade income suddenly from 1 month to another, you're not getting all 3 ducats of that, because also your expenses increase by quite a large amount. And that means that keeping the stability up above 0 is way more expensive than it was without the trading money. Now, same goes also for the diplomatic investment and for the investment on your legitimacy. But that still means that you get more money if you trade, compared to if you don't trade and then just pay basically nothing for your investments. You still make more money, but you don't make 100% of the trade money. Instead, you have to pay some of that stuff back for the stability, for the diplomatic investment, for the legitimacy of your country, which in my opinion is the perfect balance between small countries and bigger countries, because it simply means that very small countries with a very small income have a way easier time of keeping their stability, legitimacy, and diplomats up by a large amount, whereas bigger nations really have to decide whether they really want to go to 100 stability, because that would cost you a lot of money, or if they would stay rather at 10 stability equilibrium and risk the fact that they fall below 0 from some events or something. So you really have to decide what to do with your money. You don't get the money straight up into your treasury. You have to decide what investments you have to take as a bigger country. And as a smaller country, you have less money, yes, but you have the advantage that the stability of your country and the diplomatic moves that you can make are way less expensive, and therefore you can have a way more stable, a way more diplomatic, and a way more legitimate country than bigger nations can have, and therefore bigger nations get balanced out with their income. By more income means more stability investment and more diplomatic investment, and therefore finding, in my opinion, the perfect balance between bigger nations and smaller nations. The next thing is the Black Death, because the Black Death, you probably noticed that from the Death Diaries if you read them already, but also in my version I can approve that the Black Death killed way less people. I had around 50 million casualties from the Black Death in my current game, whereas the May version that I played had around 150 million casualties from the Black Death. And on top of that, one more thing was changed, which I think is really interesting, that the Black Death wasn't spreading all at once like it was in the May version, but instead it spread through waves, so one after another. First one was the wave on the Mediterranean coastline, so the Italian coast, the South French coast, the Iberian coast, and those nations, so France, Iberia, Italy, they were all affected in the first wave. And then it took about 2 years until it went over to Germany and affected the German lands. And then after that, it affected the Polish lands. And then 2 years after that, it affected Eastern Europe and Scandinavia. And while these waves basically spread it through the European countries, the first countries that had the Black Death very early already, they already fought against the Black Death and they already finished the disaster basically. So they had no more problems with Black Death. They had immunity and buildings and stuff like that already built. And therefore you would really see a wave of the Black Death going through Europe from, southwest to northeast. Where the earlier versions have no more problems with the Black Death when the eastern parts are just getting started. And in my opinion, that really felt super immersive to watch that happen. And also one more very interesting change is that you couldn't isolate your country entirely before you had contact with the Black Death. What that also means is for the other nations that have a land connection to the Black Death, they can't really prevent the spread of the Black Death entirely by simply isolating as soon as it pops up in the Golden Horde. Okay, so they have to wait until the Black Death comes towards their own country, and then they can isolate their country and hope that the small outbreak stays as a small outbreak and doesn't get any bigger. But you can't avoid the Black Death entirely, which I think is a really important balance change that would otherwise make the player country totally overpowered. Then I want to talk about the performance. So in the current version, the first thing that I noticed was that it went a little slower in terms of the game speed. I would say maybe 10 seconds per month on speed 5, whereas in the earlier May version it was maybe 7 to 8 seconds. I don't know exactly, but I noticed definitely that it was a little slower in terms of game speed right now. But the biggest but of that is that the performance, the overall performance was way cleaner. I had no FPS drops whatsoever in the time that I played for now. And I had no problems with lagging tooltips, for example, or lagging interfaces at all that I actually had a few times in the earlier May version, which lets me think that this version that I'm playing currently is maybe a little bit slower in terms of game speed, but way cleaner in terms of the overall performance, which is, I think, a big step into the right direction. And keep in mind, there are still 3 months of development until release, and they already said that they will work on the performance right now. So I'm pretty sure that the game speed will increase as well until the release date. So yeah, a big step into the right direction in my opinion on the performance side. Then one more smaller thing before I come to the mission system, which is the discovery of the new world. What happened in the May version is that Castile discovered the new world by 1370, which is super early, and I felt really bad about that because it made the game go way too fast into a direction which should happen way later, like in the Age of Discovery, which is the third age in the game start. In this current version that I'm playing, I'm right now in this game at the date of 1410, and it didn't happen so far. Already a huge improvement to the historical balance of events, in that sense that Castile didn't discover the New World before 1400. I really think this should be a huge investment to do so. And exactly that is also the problem for that they balanced it by increasing the time of exploration missions dramatically. So, for example, in my first game as Greenland, it took me like 80 to 90 months to discover the Canadian coast. Now that takes 10 gold per month to finance, so around 1,000 ducats or 900, 800 ducats. Or gold rather, to discover Canada as Greenland. Right now, in the current version, it would have taken me 300 months to discover the closest Canadian coastline. And that also, of course, means 3,000 gold of investment that it would have taken me for discovering the New World. I think this is a very good balance change in general, so it should be crazy time consuming and crazy expensive to do such an exploration missions in such an early date, which by the way, in the Age of Discovery you get modifiers that significantly decrease that exploration time very early on. So in the Age of Discovery you will be able to do that much faster and much cheaper, which is, I think, a perfect balance to say you can do it earlier, but it costs you an insane amount of money. But on the other hand, for Greenland, it really doesn't make any sense, because Greenland historically already discovered the New World centuries before the start date. And they even have a specific government reform for them that allows them the recruitment of explorers and allows the exploration missions to be done. But this is totally irrelevant because you cannot afford that, not in 200 years, because you need 3,000 gold, which is 1,000 times your total GDP of your country. And I'm talking about GDP, not monthly balance. And it would take you 1,000 times your GDP to afford that exploration mission. Why would you give them the ability to explore if it's so expensive for them that they will never be able to do it? And why would you even need them to explore that if they traded and discovered the New World already centuries before start date? So in my opinion, the government reform of Greenland really needs like an additional modifier for exploration speed to make that maybe 50 or 60 months to rediscover the Canadian coast, which already would cost you a lot of money. But yeah, it would mean that you could actually do it as Greenland. And Greenland is one of the nations that are historically really plausible to discover and colonize the New World before the Age of Discovery. So why make it impossible for Greenland? That's the only thing that I really feel is not that balanced about this entire exploration thing. Otherwise, a really nice change to make it way slower before the Age of Discovery. And now, last but not least, I want to talk about the mission system, because they implemented a mission system that wasn't there in the May version that I played, that is actually, in my opinion, a very interesting approach to giving the player an objective, but not letting certain countries get a huge amount of flavor, whereas other countries get none. If you, for example, play Iceland in EU4, it's even a formable nation. They have no mission tree. They have the generic mission tree that has no interesting modifiers at all. And playing that feels really completely underwhelming compared to, for example, Norway, who has an insanely large mission tree with branching missions here and there. Now in EU5, they made a mission system that is more generic in total. So you don't have missions that are country specific at all, but that also means that all nations have the same mission system. And that means that no country is really left behind compared to other countries. The way that the mission system works is that you, for example, will get a mission to make one of your councillors the head of the council, like a new mechanic that makes the council a little bit more efficient and the estate a little bit more powerful that he belongs to and so on. Just a simple thing, right? And then you get a reward for that. For example, you get a casus belli on your neighboring country. And I think even though this is such a generic mission system that you do generic things that you could do otherwise without any reward as well, but you get the mission to do it and you get recommended to do it basically, and you get something for it, even if it's not a lot, but you get something for it. This system is, in my opinion, really the fitting system for making all countries playable at the same time and with the same fun, which wasn't the case in EU4. If I remember correctly, at some point I even got like a subjugation CB as a reward from a mission that gave me a subjugation CB on some Balkan nations that were ruled by the ruler of Naples. And that was because the ruler of Naples had the same dynasty as my ruler, the ruler of Norway and Sweden. And yeah, in that sense, it was really that interesting to see that the missions give you dynamic rewards based on the situation not only of your country, but on based on the situation of the world. And therefore, it really felt like an immersive mission that the whatever council or something give you as the player something to do that is generic, but it is fitting for the dynamic of your game that you're currently in. And that's, in my opinion, a pretty interesting approach for the mission system in EU5. And I think if you work with that a little bit more and, you know, add a little bit more, let's say, dynamic missions for the situation of your game, then I think this could really become a mission system that is superior even to the mission system of EU4. And mostly because it actually includes every single nation on the planet. So that was it for the comparison. The video is already super long. I try to keep it short, but yeah, you know how it is. Whatever, let me know in the comments what you think about these changes, and also let me know in the comments what other changes you would like to see before the release date. And also, if you have any more questions to my current game, then definitely ask me in the comments. I will try to answer all of them. And this is it for this week. This is it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And we are going to see, as always, on another Monday.